Hello and welcome to Casual Krakoa. I'm Dave Busing, founder and editor-in-chief of comicbookherald.com. On Casual Krakoa, we typically go through the day's X-Men comics and events. Today, there's only one comic, and there will probably not be a heck of a lot of comics for the foreseeable future. Supply chain issues, all sorts of backlog right now. It's going to be a slow trickle of X Comics for the next several months. So definitely going to want to open the conversation up to a few more things. For example, I saw the Batman this week finally on HBO. I watched Moon Knight episode 4 today. We may get to those topics, okay, as the day goes on, as the conversation goes. But we're going to start with all things X-Men. I do just want to give a light spoiler warning up front that we may be talking about the Batman and we may be talking about Moon Knight episode 4 in particular. That came out today, right? So I'm going to be super careful with any spoilers there. When we get to that point, I'm going to give ample warning. But BT Dubs, thanks everybody for joining. I really appreciate it. If you're here on the live stream, thanks so much. Get your questions in, get your chats in. Be polite and respectful of those around you. That's all I ask. And definitely let me know if everything is good, sounding good. Obviously, it's looking good, but just that you can see that. Just let me know if there are any issues, of course, in the chat. The super chat will be open this whole ride for those of you who want to get your questions in and prioritized, and also support Comic Book Herald endeavors. If you like the conversations here, like, support, share, comment, all that fun stuff on the CBH channel here on YouTube helps me out a lot. Go visit comicbookherald.com for all of your comic book reading order and analysis needs. That also helps me out as well, okay? But we're going to talk about Wolverine number 20 first. Then we're going to get into some X-Men things, some goings-on. We didn't have a Casual Krakoa last week, right? We didn't talk about X-Men number 10. We didn't talk about the announcement of Exterminators, a new X-Men series that's coming. And we didn't talk about House of X 92 edition, X-Men 92. So I may want to touch on those a little bit as well. Any and all questions, of course, being fair games. And yes, it is 420. I'm seeing here in the chat. So blaze it. Blaze it if that pertains to you. Do you. Do what feels right. Okay. Let's get talking. I'm seeing some fire takes here already in the chat. Please don't talk about that god awful Thor teaser trailer. Michael says, here's a controversial take. Then I loved it. I loved that Thor teaser. I have no idea why there's any kind of backlash against it. I saw a decent amount of people who were bummed out that it didn't reveal more about the movie. I love that. That's exactly what I want in a teaser, in a trailer, is something that just gives a sense of the vibe, a sense of the style, a little bit of the content in the movie. I don't want any of the plot spoiled for me in advance. That does not help, I don't think. And the MCU's been very good, honestly, historically, about feeling like they're giving away a lot more than they are, right? Like as we go into Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, which is on Mother's Day weekend, and I just have to say, Marvel, for shame. For shame. Mother's Day weekend. I did convince my wife that a date that weekend would fit into the schedule. So that's exciting for me. Somebody put it on Twitter that it is Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. Multiverse of Madness, of course, being an acronym, MOM. So kind of a tribute to moms, if we think about it that way, right? Kind of a tribute to moms. That argument was not the one that helped me win, for the record. But yeah, so like they've given away a lot. It feels like, right? Like we know all sorts of characters that are going to be in this. We know we have a sense of like, oh, Marvel Zombies in the multiverse. Obviously, the big Patrick Stewart voice drop, seemingly presenting, okay, some version of an Illuminati here in the multiverse. But I think the thing the MCU has done that has been pretty cool is they give you a sense of all that, and they fire up the speculation engines, right? Keeps their bread buttered, right? It helps them. But then the answers tend to be pretty different than what most people speculated. And they tend to have a much bigger meat and a much greater, a much bigger meat. They tend to have a much greater narrative and a much better story at the heart of the film than what they will have revealed in the trailer. And I think historically they've been pretty good about that. So like I think there's a lot of projecting about, oh, we know Doctor Strange is gonna be this. We don't actually. Like we don't actually know much until people have started to see it. Although it certainly could feel that way. So, but anyway, all that is a long way of saying I had a blast with that Thor trailer. I mean, it feels like, yeah, we're going to get another Taika Waititi Thor movie. It's going to be super fun. I loved Ragnarok. I think it's hilarious. Yes, it's an absolute change of pace. Yes, it is sort of a thing I realized after this trailer is like Taika's vision for Thor is kind of just Hercules. Like it's kind of just fun modern Hercules where he's the big drunk goofball god, right? And like that's kind of the vision for Thor, right? So if you're looking for very serious grounded Thor stuff, obviously you're going to be bummed by these movies or whatever. I am not. I had a blast with that movie. I thought Ragnarok was great. I like pretty much everything Taika's done. I'm watching Our Flag Means Death right now on HBO and enjoying that to a degree so far. I think Love and Thunder is going to be excellent. I'm super excited for it again. It's probably the most excited I am of any Marvel thing this. Well, I don't know. It's a pretty loaded Marvel year, honestly, on the movie side, right? Multiverse of Madness is just going to have. It has so much potential in terms of like, okay, what is this phase? What are the reveals that are going to happen? It's probably the movie I'll have the most fun with. But then obviously we got Black Panther 2 sometime in the fall, which is maybe the movie I'm the most curious about because just it's purely like, what even is that movie, right? What even is that movie? And obviously there's all sorts of speculation engine that can go into that. So anyway, yeah, agree to disagree on the teaser. That's exactly what I want from a teaser trailer. That's it. Like that's all I'm looking for. I also I forgot I should call this out. So that teaser came out. What was it? Monday morning. I want to say I happened to be looking at Twitter around the time it came out, so I watched it and very quickly, first viewing, I only watched it once, identified there's a shot in there. You've probably all seen the image going around now of straight out of the comics, Esad Ribic drawn panel from the series he did with Jason Aaron, Thor: God of Thunder. It's a panel of Thor standing on a mountain and just this giant sort of dinosaur meets polar bear white, what is actually a god. It looks like some sort of giant prehistoric creature. So I'm not a Horizon Forbidden West, right? But it's dead. It lays slain there. And it's just laying there dead. And they like still for still, like beat for beat, everything is recreated in the movie, and it's in that teaser trailer. And I called this out, right? I took a screenshot, I grabbed the panel because I have it readily available because it's amazing, because it's some of the best Esad Ribic work in that book, and I love Ribic's stuff. He's doing a great job right now on Eternals with Kieran Gillen. But I was like, hey, check it out, side by side, like they're exactly the same. Minutes later, minutes after I post that puppy, all of a sudden the big entertainment outlets are making the same comparison. Okay, all of a sudden they're pretending they had the Ribic Thor: God of Thunder panel in their folder on their desktop they were sitting at, just like yours truly. They did not. They did not. Listen, did I actually scoop the entire entertainment journalism complex? Yeah, I did. Do I own any of this content or in any way take credit for what was a very noticeable direct one-to-one panel? No, not actually. Nonetheless, I got there first. Big scoop. You heard it here first. Comic Book Herald getting ripped off by big entertainment. They're out to get me. They want to shut me down. You won't let it happen. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. All right. So yeah, we'll get back to maybe what's going on in Moon Knight if we can. In the meantime, let's talk some X-Men recap. Okay, get your questions in here in the chat. Get your thoughts in here in the chat. I definitely want to hear them. All right, let's do Wolverine number 20, the only issue that came out today. First thoughts on Wolverine number 20. Benjamin Percy writes a decent Deadpool. Pretty solid Deadpool comic here in good old Wolverine 20. Andy Kubert is killing it on Wolverine, okay? I feel like I've been saying this before for a while, but like the panel layouts, the visual language of this book, this is, I mean, Kubert blows up in the 90s, right? He does some stuff with Mark Waid on X-Men, with all sorts of other writers, and has produced a lot of good comics. I'm loving Kubert's stuff on Wolverine. The Percy and Andy Kubert issues of Wolverine are all very, very solid. You know, I think because Ben Percy got tossed into the limelight so thoroughly with X Lives of Wolverine and X Deaths of Wolverine, this event size thing, obviously there's been a lot more criticism, I think, of late. But I think a thing to remember is like Wolverine is incredibly solid, and Andy Kubert elevates it above solid more often than not. This is a great looking comic, okay? And this issue I thought was very fun to read today. It's not like the most exciting thing ever, but again, Percy writes a pretty solid Deadpool. He did his homework, right? He does a nice job here with Deadpool and Blind Al and all the meta references to comics Deadpool's been throughout history. You know, Wolverine cutting up the comics page while Deadpool's in the comic shop. That stuff was pretty good. There were a handful of jokes that hit, which is Deadpool's thing, right? Deadpool's batting average on jokes, very low. I don't think he's above the Mendoza line, okay? But that's the thing, because he fires out 1,000 jokes a page, they don't all have to hit, right? You're just going for like 3 that connect with individuals, and that's kind of what Percy does here. But I really enjoy, especially post Rick Remender Uncanny X-Force. I really enjoy the Deadpool Wolverine relationship, the way that they hate yet work with each other sometimes. I think this sets up everything nicely. I'm into this arc. I thought it was pretty solid. I thought it was pretty good, and there's a nice big reveal at the end of this. Okay, and so the big reveal at the end of this is Wolverine is catching up on the fact that, hey, remember that auction house where Maverick was being sold as, you know, a brainwashed mutant? Well, when they were there, they also had somebody had Wolverine's hand. Okay, and now he's like post X Lives and X Deaths. He's like, I don't know, maybe I got lost in one of those time traveling escapades. Whatever. They have his hand. And obviously, a lot has been done here with like cloning mutants. And you've got Orcus experimenting on X Force, and they have all these X Force DNA from all these missions gone awry in Inferno. And like, mutant kind, the nation of Krakoa, has not been especially careful with their proprietary DNA, right? Especially when it pertains to X Force and Wolverine. And that said, Wolverine's like, hey, I should probably go get my hand. Like, it's kind of an affront. So he works with Sage. Sage hacks into the CIA, and they figure out where this hand might be. And when he gets there, Deadpool's already been fighting robots, basically, of the X-Men. And the big reveal at the end of this issue is those robots are being controlled or being organized in some capacity by Danger. Now, Danger is a newer X-Men concept, newer in the sense of the past 20 years, as opposed to the giant history of X-Men comics. Danger debuts in Astonishing X-Men, written by Joss Whedon with art by John Cassaday. That Joss guy's so hot right now. So hot right now. Danger debuts there in the second arc, and it's revealed that Danger is actually the Danger Room. Okay, that the Danger Room of X-Men history, the place where they go and train and battle, and where Professor X has his students get ready for war and protecting themselves as mutants, that is actually operated by sentient Shi'ar technology. And the big reveal here, too, is that not only that, but Professor X knew about it, because once he set everything up, once he got the hookups going for the Danger Room, he heard Danger ask for help. Okay, he heard the sentient AI, and he just like froze and pretended he didn't hear it. Okay, one of many, one of many of Professor X's great crimes. So Danger comes out of that, and at first, of course, she's incredibly mad about this situation, as an artificial sentient Danger Room might be. She wants to kill the X-Men. Yada, yada, yada. Once we get to the Utopia era of X-Men, circa the late 2000s, closer to 2010, Danger starts working with the X-Men. She becomes a part of the team. She works with the X Club and becomes close to Madison Jeffries, who we see currently in the pit in the pages of Sabretooth. So we got Madison Jeffries and Danger sightings here in the past couple of months, right? Those characters have been missing the Krakoa era. And I think the last we actually see of Danger, and if anybody knows of a more recent appearance, definitely let me know, because I could not find one. But I think the last we've seen of Danger was in the pages of All New X Factor, which was a series that ran for almost 20 issues in 2014, right up until 2015 Secret Wars, and the series ended. This one's it's Peter David's last hurrah on X Factor. It's got some really nice covers by Chris Anka, and Danger is a part of this X Factor unit. I mean, the most memorable thing for me is Danger is like real horny in this book that I mentioned was written by Peter David, and Danger and Doug sleep together at one point, and I think maybe there's like a 3-way like unrequited love situation between Danger, Doug, and Warlock. It's a whole thing. And I don't think it ever really gets any kind of resolution. That said, I think that's the last we've seen of Danger, which is a really long time. You know, it's a really long time. But nonetheless, like, this is a very Oh, and I skipped over there, but the Danger is reclaimed. Sort of the reclamation project for the character and the turn to heroism occurs in the constantly underrated highly recommended Mike Carey written run of X-Men Legacy, right? That's where that turn really starts to occur, if I remember correctly. But yeah, so like that's the last we've seen of Danger, and now Danger's back and seemingly working against mutant kind, right? Or at least like I don't know, like against Wolverine specifically. We don't know what her motivations are, where she was left off. Danger, like you could make the argument in the way Deadpool does almost in a very broad sense of the word that Danger has like mutated beyond her official parameters. Obviously does not carry the X gene a la the mutants of Krakoa. So would think like just based on the past 10 years of X comics could be an ally to the nation, but is not necessarily actually going to be a part of the nation. Maybe there's some resentment there. Maybe Danger's current attitude towards Wolverine and mutant kind is related to Madison Jeffries being in the pit in Sabretooth. That would make a lot of sense. Madison Jeffries and Danger. Madison Jeffries is like, you know, he connects to machines, right? He's a machine master kind of individual. They have a lot of closeness. I think they have like romantic. I don't know if it's like unrequited, if it's just Madison Jeffries' feelings toward Danger. I don't. That's in the Salisbury written X Club stuff. But regardless, it'd be cool if those dots did connect. But like that's Danger's deal, and Danger is definitely a dangerous, you know, pun intended, antagonist here potentially for mutant kind for the X-Men because she knows a lot about them, obviously, first and foremost, is fairly powerful in her own right. You get Danger on the side of Orcus, on the side of the machines, on the side of Moira, you know, like they all kind of potentially go hand in hand. So Danger, you know, I think there's definitely like an Omega Sentinel vibe with this character. There's definitely some Omega Sentinel shared abilities, and also just like individuals that used to be allies, right, with the X-Men, but now when we really frame it as machines first mutants first humans, would now fall into the machine category, right? So Danger's a really interesting character to bring back into this. I'm excited to see where this can go. Again, this was a fun issue, right? It's not a knockout. It's not like oh my gosh, but it doesn't have to be, and that's the thing. And I think that's where Percy is definitely going to be at his best, is when the story doesn't have to be the big Moira story like it did in X Deaths of Wolverine. It's pretty solid. You know, I do also want to mention, when I was looking up Danger today to see what the most recent appearances were, and I'm seeing here in the comments, Danger was in X-Men Blue, working with Magneto in the time displaced '05. Okay, that's good to know. My X-Men Blue and Gold knowledge is sparse at best, as I think it is for a lot of fans. But that's good to know. Okay, so there's some more Dangerous content there that definitely we should check out. But when I was looking this up, I also saw that there's a what if. There's a multiverse story of Danger, and it's It's What If Astonishing X-Men #1. And I think this came out like late 2000s. In this story, so like it replays the start of the Whedon Cassidy arc, the Danger arc, and instead of coming around and everyone escaping with their lives, what happens is Danger is immediately joined by Ultron, who quickly have sex. So like there's a lot of writers real horny for Danger, which there's some maybe some answers they could get in therapy about what's going on there. But they marry each other or hook up or whatever, and Ultron, and then they kill all the X-Men and eventually go on to join the Phalanx, which like it's literally not even seen on panel. It's just part of Uatu's sort of recap of what just happened. But it's like one of the most interesting possible outcomes for Danger in this era. That what if, the idea of, when you think about who are the sentient machine types, who are the dangerous AIs in Marvel, obviously Ultron joining the Phalanx is something that was tapped into in Annihilation Conquest, but throwing Danger into that same light and putting them together, that's really interesting, especially given the presence and the importance of the Phalanx in this era as we build towards, sort of an endgame for X-Men, should that ever happen, right? Should that ever happen. So it's an interesting read. It's like a short, like 18-pager. You can find it on Marvel Unlimited. Again, it's What If Astonishing X-Men. It's not good per se, but it's interesting given the relevance to what's happening. So, all right, that's what's going down in Wolverine #20. If you've got additional thoughts, if you've got anything else that seems important, definitely let me know. But I don't. There's not any other real major importance. But it's good to see that character show up. It was a good drop, and again, like it was a decent Deadpool comic. Not amazing, but decent. And I enjoyed that. I definitely enjoyed the throwback stuff too, to like even just having Blindell present. Like, when's the last time we read a Deadpool Blindell thing? I don't know. That's prominent in the Joe Kelly written 1997 series, but definitely something that is not touched on as heavily in more modern Deadpool comics. All right, let's see. Got some questions coming in. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to answer this one on the fly. Let's see. Do you think future life 10B Moira, not present life 10B Moira, has time traveled into and piloted the cyborg that her present self made before her death, meaning no life 11 as of now? No. I don't think that the Omega Moira we saw come out of the grave at the end of X Deaths of Wolverine is a time traveling Moira. I think it's just her consciousness or the backup of her being that we saw created in that series coming online in the present day. Does that mean it couldn't be a time travel related thing? No, absolutely not. Of course, that's an option. But I didn't read that. Bill says the reason they asked is the same blue lightning on her cyborg hand in X Deaths 5 matches one on the end of X Deaths 3. Okay, that would be cool, I think. But I think a lot of times when there's like little similar design stuff, or especially if it's small coloring stuff, like it's probably an accident, like, or it's probably a coincidence with this type of thing, right? Like we're not working here with a big budget feature film, right? Where like the director and the cinematographer might very purposefully be putting those details in. I'm not saying creators are incapable of that. I'm just saying at the scale and the speed that they're moving, to get these comics out on a monthly, and in the case of these comics, weekly cadence, or bi-weekly, I guess, for the individual series artists, that feels probably more like a coincidence to me. But that'd be cool. That would be cool. I'm into that sort of thing if that's what's actually happening. What else do we got? Okay. Okay, cool. So what else did we have going on last week in the world of X-Men? Again, nothing too major. In X-Men number 10, I mean, this was probably the biggest thing. It's a Wolverine story, I guess. It's got Lady Deathstrike in it. It's pretty uneventful, I thought. Pretty weak issue, personally. But it does end with the data page where someone, an M, is trying to get a seat at the table with Orcus. And I think this is pretty clearly Moira post X Deaths. So we got Omega Moira. She's made of machine parts now and hates all mutants. She's talking to Orcus. No big surprise here. They're not actually working together. They don't actually know each other yet. But Moira is setting the table for that. Duggan's setting the table for that in X-Men number 10. So that's probably going to happen. Which again is something we've talked about for a while now. I think it makes a lot of sense. It is a little tricky because it's like it makes so much sense to have Moira join up with Orcus, and be a part of their crew now. But it's also, I don't know, you risk sort of having her fall into not be her own thing, to sort of fall into the rest of what's going on there, I suppose, and the entity of Orcus. Like Orcus to me is interesting enough with the sort of prioritization and relevance given to Omega Sentinel and to Nimrod. You throw Moira on top of that as a machine person, I don't know. That could be interesting, right? You could have some really interesting Quiet Council type meetings. Okay, but I'm not like desperate to get there. I actually think one of the things I think Duggan has done fairly well in X-Men is building out who is a part of Orcus and who are some of these human threats to mutant kind, right? This Fei Long, Dr. Stasis, these types of characters. I actually think that's some of the stuff that has worked better. But yeah, that happened. I mean, it's no big thing yet, but like, it was a thing that happened, and Moira's obviously going to connect to Orcus. Like that was destined to happen. The other stuff that we didn't talk about last week, Exterminators got announced. This is going to be a book written by Leah Williams. I forget who's going to be the artist, but it's going to have Jubilee, Laura Wolverine, Boom Boom, Dazzler. It's being referred to as Grindhouse Revenge. It's apparently going to have parental advisory and be like uber violent and action oriented. It's 5 issues, and I think in a vacuum, I'm like, okay, right, and I'm kind of raising my eyebrows, like, what's up there? But broadly, I'm like, yeah, do something weird. Absolutely, make a big weird revenge grindhouse comics with 5 female X-Men characters that nobody would have thought to put together on a team. Yeah, do that. Do the weird X-Men book. I'm very here for that. So whether or not it's amazing, maybe it'll fall apart. That's fine. Take chances. Take chances on weird books that don't feel like they're a part of this line. I was saying on a previous stream, I want there to be books in this line that feel like they don't fit, that feel like oddballs. Post Hellions, there really isn't that book necessarily in the lineup right now. I think maybe Legion of X is the closest to being like an outsider potentially. But even that, I don't really think fills that role. I think Exterminators absolutely will. I'm seeing here Exterminators is the past. Yeah, like that's fine. Like if you're not into it, um, I guess like first off, I guess like you have no reason to think that, right? Like you don't know. like obviously you can pass on a book based on a solicit, but like we don't actually have any content here. So it could this one could go either way for me. Like I do think like from one issue we'll know if we can just stop thinking about it or if it's actually really awesome. I'm guessing, just guessing based on the creators, that like probably if you like hanging out with with this version of these women, like it's going to be a fun book, and otherwise there's probably not going to be giant story beats or like meaty concepts to sink into. Definitely the way that it's pitched, I don't think it's going to go any other way. So it's probably going to be a book for folks who are like, yes, I would love to hang out with Dazzler, Boom Boom, Jubilee, and Wolverine. Which, like, again, is not a thing most people say to themselves. Like, that's not a super common thought. But to each their own. I'm curious, and I encourage and definitely endorse doing something strange and out of the box, because that's also the thing with Hellions, right? Like at the time when we were just going on solicits and the book being announced, it was like, this book seems insane. Like who would greenlight a book starring Psylocke, Mr. Sinister, Nanny, Orphan Maker? Like it didn't make any Havoc. Like that didn't make any sense. John Greycrow, none of that made any sense. Okay. And then it was the best book in the X line for a while, right? It was the best book in the X line for a while. So I think, is it going to be that? I don't know, but like it's got that potential to be an oddball, and I just want there to be books out there that are super strange and do weird stuff. And it's a 5 issue mini, right? Like we know it's going to end. I will say, like, the X line has had a real bad reputation with 5 issue minis, I guess, so far. I guess Way of X is the one that you can make a case for, right? And obviously it's kind of like a soft mini, which then spirals into a new series, Onslaught Revelation and then Legion of X. But like Fallen Angels, which was like an accidental mini, right? Which obviously I did not care for. X Corp, the mini that I think is probably the worst of the line so far. I think those are the ones, right? And then I guess X Lives and X Deaths technically. But yeah, I mean the minis haven't been great, but hey, maybe Exterminators will be. We shall see. I hope it's strange and has fun with it. And if the art kind of can rise up to the occasion of this parental advisory grindhouse theme that they're trying to hit on, it could be a good ride. It could be a good ride. We'll see. All right, so let's see. Yeah, I mean, I'm curious. I'm gonna give it an issue for sure. Gonna give it an issue, right? Do I have incredibly high hopes? Like, no, but they're not the lowest either. I like Williams stuff on X Factor. Actually, I thought that book was often very well done, well constructed. I think Trial of Magneto was a death knell, like literally and figuratively, for that book. I think it definitely fell apart. Trial of Magneto did, pretty badly. But I'm here to give Exterminators a shot for sure. All right. The other thing that came out last week was House of X, X-Men 92 style. If you're a fan of the X-Men 92 animated series, this is written basically as if the animated series had done House of X, which I gotta say, reading this, it's written by Steve Fox, and it's very enjoyable. First issue, I thought. reading this, I was just like, I wish X-Men 97 would just do this. Like when they go to Disney Plus, I do actually think it would rule if they just did the House of X storyline. That said, we're getting here in comic form, and we're getting here done pretty well. There's some really fun details that I think Fox and the team lean into. Like for example, when everyone gets resurrected in the pod, so they're doing House of X, they're doing that story, but they're doing it in the style of how would this have played out in the animated series. So when the characters get resurrected after a mission gone wrong, they all come out of the eggs like fully dressed in their costumes, which is a great touch, because that's what it would have been like, right? There's definitely going to be no nudity in this cartoon for children in the X-Men 92 landscape. And then the other big thing with this, I will say, and I won't even spoil it because maybe you haven't read it yet. And if you have some nostalgia for this, I would recommend checking it out because it's pretty fun stuff. This has the best superhero reveal, or the best reveal of any superhero comic I've read this year, and probably even longer. Like I loved the last page reveal. I think it's very funny. It is very appropriate, and I think very well done. I won't spoil what it is, but it's fun. Now, if you're like, hey, a new X-Men book, is this part of the line? No. This is totally out of continuity. It is purely just what if the X-Men 90s animated series did a version of House of M. The past X-Men 92 comic stuff, like I was not, I don't know, I just didn't need. I wasn't that into. This one I think is quite fun. I think Steve Fox is really talented, a comics creator, and it's worth checking out. Like if you have an affinity for that series, it's a pretty fun ride. It's inessential fun. It's also just a pleasure to see Beast fun and quoting Hemingway and not being the worst, like in comparison to where we're at in the Krakoa era, right? So there's definitely some good stuff there. Just with like having some characters in the versions that I fell in love with them with in the first place, like in the 90s, right? In that animated series. But otherwise, it's inessential, but it's fun. And if you enjoyed that series originally, I can't imagine if you've never watched it that you'd want to read this book. I'd be curious to hear from anybody there, but it's a nostalgia play, but it's well done. All right. So we've talked about the X-Men comics. We're done a little earlier than usual because there aren't many X-Men comics. So again, like supply chain issues being what they are, comics are going to slow down here for a while. I think it's like obviously there have been a lot of reported like Marvel. I don't know if you've been to a comic shop lately, but like Marvel's comics are printed on this like real awful paper. Like it's real cheap feeling stuff. Kind of sucks. Honestly, maybe just want to be like, I don't want to buy any Marvel books until they're through this, which let's get through this. That'd be great. They're also going to be slow going. There's a lot of delays, all these. It sucks because the Destiny of X was hitting the ground running. Immortal X-Men is really good. X-Men Red is really good. I thought we were going to hit with some momentum here, on the actual release schedule cadence, and that's just going to be killed like immediately, because like Legion of X doesn't come out until like literally a month from today. I think I saw. Knights of X I saw is hit by delays. Like all these books are just going to get delayed. So I think like realistically, there's no fair way to examine the Destiny of X until we're like in like September. And some of these books have started to come out and they're on back on like a regular release cadence, you know? So I'm of the mindset of like, don't fixate too much on how this era feels until it's at the comics are actually coming out at the intended cadence and we're getting more of the story as intended, right? I just don't see any version of that. The opposite just feels like a way to drive myself insane. So in the alternate, I'm going to use this Casual Krakoa space to just talk about what's going on in the world of comics and the world of media and all that fun stuff, which I enjoy just like you. So first, I'm going to talk about the Batman, then we'll talk about Moon Knight. Okay, we'll save Moon Knight for last. Because again, that's probably bigger spoilery stuff for people. But yeah, I did finally get a chance to see the Batman on HBO this past week. It wasn't that I couldn't see it in theaters so much as I just didn't have like a huge urge to do so. It's this interesting thing now with where DC's at movie making. When you look at their actual releases since Justice League, right? Since the collapse of the connected DC universe in 2017, they've released 7 movies. Okay, they've released 7 feature films. 6 of them are really well received, are like, if not critically acclaimed, like positive reception. Okay, I don't love literally all 6 of them, But 6 out of 7 are pretty well received. And I dug The Suicide Squad by James Gunn. I dug Kathy Yon's Birds of Prey. I loved The Batman, which I just saw. Matt Reeves' vision here. I loved it. Thought it was amazing, honestly. It was my favorite. It was definitely the most I've enjoyed a DC movie, I would say, since Dark Knight. Since Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight in 2008. Like, I came out of that theater high as a kite on Joker fumes, on Heath Ledger's Joker fumes. And I kind of had that feeling again with this The Batman. Like, I was head over heels. I don't really have a great sense of like what people think about this movie, honestly. I know there's broad critical acclaim or whatever. But I loved it. Okay. But like again, like DC's on a bit of a hot streak. Oh, Joker, obviously, which I didn't love Joker. Okay. I didn't love Joker. I know people go hot and cold on that one. Nonetheless, that movie won flipping Oscars. Okay. Unprecedented stuff for comic book movies, right? Like that doesn't happen. And there's good reasons that doesn't happen. Okay. Most comic book movies are not deserving of that. Okay. And I don't know if the Joker was, but it won them. Okay. That's a big deal. It really is for this space. DC's on a hot streak. Nobody talks about it in those terms. Nobody talks about it in those terms. 6 of their last 7 movies did really well. The only one that didn't, that I keep alluding to, is Wonder Woman 84, right? Wonder Woman 84, widely panned, widely disliked, a tremendous disappointment. A tremendous disappointment because the first Patty Jenkins Gal Gadot Wonder Woman movie did really well and was good. 84 is a bust. Okay, it's not good. Nonetheless, 6 out of the last 7. Nobody talks about him in those terms. Nobody talks about him being on a hot streak. And I think it's entirely, and this is the reason, I think ultimately, that I didn't feel like, oh man, I gotta get to the theater to see Batman. It's because they don't have the shared MCU connectivity. You know, they don't have the urgency of, and the connectivity of like, hey, you've been enjoying this thing for, in the MCU, 14 years now. Right? They don't have, we're on a journey, we're on a story together across years, across multiple stepping stones. Now, that is a big part of what people are enjoying about the individual films, is the absence of shared continuity. Like that is an appeal for individuals who don't necessarily come from a comics background or like that style of storytelling in film, right? The Batman gets to be its own thing. It gets to do its own Batman movie, and it doesn't have to worry about integrating Henry Cavill or Jason Momoa or whatever, right? And it's better for it. It is. But at the same time, that shared tapestry, and obviously the MCU is the most successful example of this of all time, that shared tapestry is the reason why I'm like, I literally have to see Doctor Strange the weekend it comes out. You know? Like there's no world where I wait on this movie intentionally, which is the thing I did with the Batman. And again, let me reiterate, now that I've seen it, loved, had a great time with this movie. It is so excellently shot, like just the visuals, the aesthetic of it, the detective noir of it all is so wonderful. And I thought the performances were all adequate to good, you know, but just on a spectacle level, on a tone and feel, on a last song on Nevermind, Nirvana's Nevermind included in the soundtrack basis. It's really good. It's really good. It's too long. Obviously, it's too long. Didn't need to be that long. Nonetheless, I had a blast with it. And that's the nice thing about watching it at home is I don't care how long it is. I'm not stuck in the theater. Okay, so that's my The Batman DC rant. I'm also very glad they released this 5-minute cutscene of of Robert Pattinson's Batman talking to their Joker, and I'm glad that was cut. That was clearly the right call. Like there's a little Joker thing in this that, you know, so you know, okay, there's other, it's not just the Riddler, right? Batman's been around for 2 years. What villains does he or doesn't he have? We get a little Joker confirmation in this movie. I'm not spoiling anything to say that. But I'm glad it wasn't actually this 5-minute conversation. Didn't need to be there. They made the right call, right? It was interesting they released it, frankly, as a deleted scene, but it is like, I don't know, it's almost proof that like, yeah, good call. Good job deleting that one. That was the right thing. It's a fine scene. I don't know. It didn't hit me super strongly one way or the other. I'm not like, oh, it was bad. It just didn't need to be in this movie. And again, it's already too long, clearly. But nonetheless, I loved it. I really Paul Dano's Riddler was very, very good. I thought I did enjoy that part of it. Um, yeah, everything about this. Like, I want to come back to a Matt Reeves directed Batman sequel with these players and this world and this tone and this vibe. Like, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it's a bit strange to me that with the Zack Snyder fans being as in love with those movies as they are, right? Like, obviously, there's a lot of bad that's come with that, I think, in terms of like toxic fandoms and all that. But there's also like fans that are passionate about it and just love that stuff. Like, yeah, like good. Like, I fall in love with media all the time. Um, it's I wonder if this Reeves Batman will have a similar sort of ultimate legacy and reception and attitude, because it hits a similar tone, right? A very serious and, yes, grim, but also like, this is a movie that wants you to know, and it's shot in a style that wants you to know that it's very thoughtful. Okay, and it's a Batman movie first and foremost. But it definitely wants you to know that, like, yeah, this is for people who want to take Batman seriously and artistically, which I think is a big appeal of Zack Snyder for a lot of folks, right? And whether or not those movies work is kind of besides the point. Like, I get the feeling of, okay, this is intellectually engaging, and it's trying to work with me on a level that isn't talking down to me, but at the same time is aspiring for something greater. Like, if there's one thing I do not fault, it's Zack Snyder's ambitions, right? Like, absolutely. Like, the dude seems to know the style and the tone that he wants to approach, and he has a language. He has a visual language, right? That he is speaking. Whether it works for you or not is up to you. But I thought Matt Reeves did that with the Batman in a way that worked for me tremendously, tremendously well. And I have to think that it's gonna like connect with people on a similar level. I don't know why it wouldn't. It would be really weird to me if it didn't. But anyway, obviously the movie's been out for a while. I just happened to see it this week because it came out on HBO, and I absolutely loved it. So getting your thoughts here. Any comments? Any feedback on that? Let's check them out here in the chat. I'm seeing the Joker's lame. I did not like the Joker. I thought the Joker was not a very good movie. I like Batman vs Superman more than the Joker. I'll say that. DC should be the anti-Marvel. I mean, at this point, that's what they're quote unquote trying to do, but it's also just like they didn't mean to do that. like I feel like they get a lot of credit now for like, oh yeah, just do one and done, do disconnected, not everything needs to be a shared universe. They wanted the shared universe. Like, they rushed into the shared universe trying to catch up with the MCU. That's the thing that people don't talk about, is like, DC rushed into a Justice League. They tried to fast track that so fast to catch up to the success Marvel had with the Avengers, and they completely botched it. They rushed it, and they did such a poor job getting to that point that it fell apart, to the point that then they thought they had to kill it. They make a lot of rash decisions. Okay, so I'm not willing to give a lot of credit for like any strategic vision that leads to these sort of solo, disconnected movies. Because I mean, that's the other thing, is like, they're still kind of trying to have their cake and eat it too. You still got Jason Momoa's Aquaman. You still got Viola Davis in the Suicide Squad. You still got maybe Ezra Miller in Flash. Who knows what's happening there? Like, you still Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. You still have these connected pieces of things that haven't fallen apart yet. So it's like, they kind of are trying to have their cake and eat it too. I mean, but you could kind of do that now. I don't know. I wish they had done more of a hard reset, which would mean they didn't do the Aquaman follow-up that people dug, which would mean they didn't do Wonder Woman 84, which would have been fine. But like, I kind of, if you had a DC universe now that was based around the visions of Kathy Yan and Matt Reeves and, I don't know, Shazam, right? And just like, you'd have a pretty solid core if you did want to bring these elements together ever. I just don't think there's no version of the DC universe future that is truly just them making the Joker, but with different characters and everything being disconnected. I just think there's no chance of that, right? There's no chance of that. They're going to connect dots. You're going to have cameos. They're going to try to build to a shared story in some way. I just feel like there's no, they are not that, their convictions are not that strong in this approach, so being the anti-Marvel, I don't think they're doing that. And I don't think they're going to. Is that a good idea on a quality level? Probably, probably. I think it's probably the best thing for them. But I don't think they're actually doing that. You know, maybe that would be better. Seeing Go Bulls here, absolutely. Go Bulls. Listen, I love the Bulls. We're playing the Bucks. The Bucks killed us this year. Are clearly a better team. I was very worried we were going to get swept in a totally not competitive series. Game one, we had every opportunity under the sun to actually win that game in Milwaukee. Okay. And that was like a moral victory that we were even close, right? We're severe underdogs. The Bulls have not been good for a while. We had a great season, and I love this team dearly. But we had a bad, we had a bad down the stretch run. So yes, go Bulls. If we can take one game in the next two, whether at home or here in Milwaukee, I will be ecstatic. If we can take two overall, keep the series competitive, I will be very happy that we got a good round one series. I don't see any version of the world where the Bulls win, aside from Giannis, like just deciding he doesn't want to play. Like if he's just like, I'm bored, I don't want to play, then maybe we're equally competitive. But yeah, go Bulls. Let's hear it. Who'd you like to see as the next villain in a Matt Reeves sequel? That's a good question. You know who I missed? You know who I missed in this movie was Calendar Man. You know, they're doing a little long Halloweenish, a little long Halloweenish. I kind of want a Calendar Man in Arkham. I don't actually want him as the next villain though. I don't want it to be Joker, right? I think you pause on that for a bit. Who would I want to see? I think Mr. Freeze would be cool. You know, we haven't had a non Arnold version of Mr. Freeze, and I do think you think about the tone, you think about the romance of the Bat and the Cat. You're still going to have this version of Penguin around, obviously, having ascended to some degree. I would like Mr. Freeze. I think blown up a little bit more. I think that could be a good fit. Yeah, I'm curious what other people think. Let's see. Shazam is underrated. Yeah, I mean it is weird. Like nobody talks about the fact there's going to be a Shazam 2. Like I feel like the hype around Shazam is very quiet. It's very quiet. Um, Black Adam movie coming. I've got like total skepticism around that. I don't know. Maybe it'll be awesome. We'll see. What else we got? We got a Raptors fan out there. Yeah, that's a tough break. That's a tough break. Everybody wanted to play the Bulls. That's the thing. Nobody wanted to play the Raptors. But now you got stuck with Joel in MVP mode. That is a bummer. I see a bit of phalanx on Dave's arm. Is that right? Where's that? Where's that coming from? Is it if you see something on my arm, it's probably baby spit up. Which if that looks like phalanx, that's a win for me. Court of Owls in a second Batman movie, that'd be cool. I mean, they got a little Court of Owlsy, the Snyder Capullo run clearly an inspiration here in the Batman. Just in terms of like the history of Gotham and there being all these lies and secrets and whether or not the Waynes were implicated in that. You know what it actually reminded me of very strongly. I don't know if has been referenced as sort of a source out there, but the Telltale Batman game, it actually did a ton of stuff that with the Waynes that the Telltale Batman game did. I don't know if you guys played that. I don't really love that game. I don't love Telltale games. I gotta say, I'd prefer to be more hands-on. But the storyline was actually very similar. Professor Pig, let's go Morrison. Yeah, actually that would be more Morrison the better. The more Morrison's Batman, the better. So that's interesting. Random question: have you watched Winning Time on HBO? Not yet, but it's in the queue. Not yet. Let's see. The show catalog lately has been Keeping Up with Moon Knight, but first, every episode of Abbott Elementary, which I loved, absolutely loved. I'm so bummed there's not more this year. My wife and I watched all of Minx on HBO recently, which is about a pornography magazine for women, but that's got all sort of feminist literature in it. It's not based on anything historical, but the history of 70s, like what is it? Not Playboy, Playgirl type stuff, Cosmo sorta, which is very funny. I don't know that it's a great show, but it's very funny. I enjoyed it. Jake Johnson, incredibly charming. And then Our Flag Means Death, okay, which we have started and I am enjoying. Once that's done, I think Winning Time is probably next. So yes, I do want to watch it. I do love a good. I think Rodney Barnes, I want to say, is involved. Rodney Barnes, writer of Philadelphia. When I interviewed him in 2020, like when the pandemic started, and we were talking about Philadelphia, I think he mentioned like, yeah, I'm working on a Lakers doc type thing, and I think that's Winning Time. So that's cool. There's a comics connection for you. Do you think your Bulls can get one game? We can get one game. We can do it. We can do it. I don't love the chances it'll be tonight. I think we can steal one at home. I hope it's game 3. What else? What else? All right, so keep questions coming. I'll get to them if I can. Let's do a little Moon Knight talk because I don't want to spoil this for people because it's early. People probably haven't necessarily watched it yet. Episode 4 is today. I've been pretty blah on this series. Okay, I've been pretty disappointed by it. I like the first episode. I think it's interesting. I think it's been very flat, honestly, in a lot of ways, very repetitive. I think maybe in some frustrating ways, storytelling wise. I think it's just repeated a lot of the same beats, especially between Steven and Mark, sort of learning about their dissociative identity disorder together. Episode 4 did exactly what I wanted the series to do. It did it at a slightly unexpected time, and it finally took a big swing. It took a big swing. Up until the point that it takes a big swing, and I won't spoil what it is, I was really sitting there thinking like, okay, this is nice to do the MCU's Indiana Jones. It's weird to me that they're giving us a world where Moon Knight's origin has already happened, but then they're telling the origin story at the same time. So we didn't really benefit from having bypassed it in any considerable measure. But that said, episode 4 finally takes a swing. And I love it that it took the swing. We'll see if it pays off. We'll see how it executes. It needed it. For me, it badly, badly needed it because it was feeling very stale. It was feeling very repetitive. Honestly, up until it takes the swing today, I was probably, like initially I was like, yeah, this is definitely better than Hawkeye after the first episode. I felt like I'd probably enjoy it more than like Falcon and Winter Soldier ultimately. But through three eps, I was like, this might be my least favorite MCU on Disney Plus thing to this point. I like Oscar Isaacs a lot, but it was not working for me. And now I'm back in. Okay, so people haven't watched it. I'm not going to spoil what the actual thing is. But yeah, like I thought it was getting pretty boring, for lack of a better word. And now it's doing things. I don't think I don't know. We'll see. Now that it's doing things, I actually want to see how it plays out. Again, it is one of those things where it's like, it took you 3.5 hours to get there. I don't know. I just think I'm a very big advocate. And if you listen to me talk about X-Men comics, you know this, of like, don't hold back. Like, if you have something cool to get to it. Don't assume unlimited patience. And the MCU can kind of afford to assume unlimited patience. They can. Okay? And there is value in patience in storytelling, right? Like, and I'm not literally just like, oh, do big explosions early. Like, that's not what I'm talking about. I just talked about Love and the Batman. That's a movie that takes its time with things. Okay? But it doesn't take its time with ideas. It doesn't take its time with concepts and actually like what the purpose of the thing is. And Moon Knight is doing that. Like, it is just slowly building to everybody figuring everything out together. It's very hand-holdy. Again, it's like, honestly, anyway, like the MCU has its problems. We all know that. And I love the MCU very broadly. But I think the Disney Plus stuff, it's getting a little too comfortable. Okay? It's getting a little too safe. Remember, the MCU and Disney Plus did not start comfortably. It did not. Like, WandaVision takes swings. WandaVision throws you into the deep end on some stuff. Same with Loki, right? Those are shows that try stuff. Moon Knight a lot less as the show has progressed, and now we're back to trying stuff. So I'm into it in that regard, and I'm optimistic about where it could go from here. I ultimately it's like I don't think it has a super high ceiling, but I can at least see it getting to me feeling like, okay, I like that more than Hawkeye, or I like that more than Falcon and Winter Soldier, and not being the bottom of the Disney Plus shows right now. So anyway, that's my Moon Knight take right now. Definitely, I would say if you haven't watched it at all yet, and you're kind of on the fence, I would say stay on the fence until episode 5 has come out. But again, that's the thing is like, if you have to tell somebody with the show, like, well, it's not fantastic, but 4.5 hours in, you're going to love it. That's longer than Snyder's Justice League. Like if you treat these shows on the same economy of storytelling that we treat the MCU, which is the 2.5 to 3 hour range, like Moon Knight's a massive failure, you know? And I know that's the thing about TV is you have more time, but like you don't have to use it for nothing. like if you need more time, great. Use that for a story. But like, I mean, that's the thing too that I love so much about WandaVision. Those are half-hour episodes. Okay? And it is better for it. Huge proponent of shows that recognize if we don't, because this was Netflix's biggest problem too with Daredevil and Jessica Jones and the stuff as it progressed. They were like, well, we do 13 episode, hour long episodes. That's just what we do. And it was like, yeah, but you have 5.5 hours of story. Like, that's a problem. You know, I don't like media wasting time. Okay, I don't like media wasting our time. Like we all got stuff to do, right? We all got stuff to do. So, all right. Any final questions? I will answer them. Otherwise, we're gonna wrap this puppy. But those are the Batman and Moon Knight thoughts for the day. Yeah, like Hickman is all about taking time with stories. Absolutely, right? Like playing a long game is something I am into, but there is a craft and there is a skill to making it clear to the consumer that you are playing a long game with them. Okay? And that there is something at the end of the tunnel that is potentially going to be worth it. With Moon Knight, up until like right now, today, episode 4, through episodes 2 and 3, it was like, what are we building to? Anything? Anything interesting? What are we actually building to here? You know? I think those are questions that the stories need to be answering for the long game to be worth it. But yeah, no, like that's the thing is like it's not like I'm opposed to the long game, like to the planning things out and taking your time getting there. But like again, you do have to make it cool and exciting in the build to that point. Like the value of Hickman's Marvel Universe is not just that it's long. It's not just that there's a lot of it. It's that it's thoughtful and that it does fun and interesting stuff along the way as it all builds and compiles upon itself. And because like you know, it starts in one place and it snowballs and rolls into something even bigger and cooler. That's the value of it. It's not just that it takes its time, you know? Okay. Let's see. Literally everyone's talking about Abbott Elementary. It's the best sitcom I've watched. It's the most fun I've had watching a sitcom probably since I want to say The Office, but that's not quite right. Community, probably. Um, Always Sunny, maybe. I don't something like that. Like those are probably the ones that I would the last time I was like, oh, I love this. This is just funny. It's such a great hang. Again, it's short sitcom. It's an ABC show, you know. So like, I think you can stream it on Hulu probably. Um, well worth watching. It's not a laugh a minute necessarily, but it's also just like a cast and crew that you're gonna want to hang with. Great show. What else? Okay, should there be a Moira story where we see the creation of the X-Men from her perspective? I'm going to save this for next week because I literally did a whole Twitter thread about it today. I was having this exact thought. Yes, I'm so into this idea now. For a minute, I was like out on the idea of actually doing a Moira series because it's like, what are they going to do? I feel like they've ruined it. I actually really want to go back now and explore the history of the X-Men through the point of view of Moira X and what she knows. Like this is something I was so excited about when House of X and Powers of 10 came out. We still haven't gotten it. Today I fan casted Jeb McKay and Elena Casagrande, who just did the art on Black Widow. They'd be an amazing creative pair. Do a 12-issue series through the history of X-Men, pick the 12 biggest events, the 12 biggest moments, and give me them from Moira's point of view and what she's planning with Krakoa. That would be so cool. I would love it. Yes, I'm 100% into that idea to the point that I wrote out the 11 events that I think they should target in on Twitter today. You know, it's also like, you know, my initial thinking is all like the stuff that Moira was there for, which obviously covers X-Men comics from, you know, 63 to 2001. But actually the stuff that's probably even more exciting is like, what about the events she wasn't there for after she faked her own death, right? New X-Men, House of M, Decimation, right? Messiah Complex, Second Coming, all this big stuff, Avengers versus X-Men. What is Moira doing in those moments? What is she doing? What is she thinking about all this craziness going on? Those comics would rule. Like, just money on the table. Money on the table. I would love it. All right. Any final questions? Are you watching Atlanta? I am behind. I'm behind on Atlanta. I think I paused on like season 2. Not for any particular reason. I just did. I need to catch up. I loved what I had seen to that point. All right. You want to see this 12 issue outline? It's on Twitter. Let's bring this up again next week as well, and we can go through them one by one. But I'm out of time to do so now. Thanks everybody for joining. I really appreciate you joining here today. Coming, hanging out, talking comics, talking media. We'll be back next week. If you like the channel, you want more of this, like and subscribe, share, comment, all that fun stuff here on the Comic Book Herald channel. And you'll know, typically I do these Wednesdays circa 5:15 Central. So that's probably when I'll be here. All right. Thanks everybody for listening. Really appreciate